guys, my name is Akizi
Yo,
and
yo, man.
Yomwa. Are you gonna introduce yourself?
Mocha.
He's not Mocha. That's not where the voice is coming from.
Uh, oh.
Sir?
Yes, I'm Mocha. I've been on the bed for uh a few months now.
I would like to
I've
just put into
appeared.
the perspective that there might be people that don't watch the YouTube video and actually listen to it as a podcast, as this is intended. And I would just like to say, for all of the people watching this show, you probably have a dirty mind. And he doesn't mean it that way, guys.
No, no, of course not. But yes, okay. I'm a disembodied voice. My name's Randall. Um, I think she likes me, I guess. Like I think we're cool. So I've been invited out to speak on the show that we've recently watched. I'm excited.
Yep. So I'm gonna do a quick little recap, y'all. Um, Basically, this is the Q crew. If you guys saw the video that I did with Mickey and Minnie, I know that's funny. I know their names are funny. We've laughed about it before. But if you've seen that, then you know that I've been interested in starting kind of like more content that's like podcast format where we're just kind of sitting and talking about something. And I am going to work to get it on podcast platforms as well as keep it on YouTube so you can have the video, which is this. If you are watching the video, you can see me. You can see the Boy Next World that we're watching. You can see Mocha here, who got me through the show, really. Mocha's the MVP. And yeah. So basically, how the podcast is going to work is we're just going to have different topics that we talk about, not really a set theme. It probably, knowing me, is going to stay focused on LGBT and Asian media. But it depends on who's on the show. But this time, Olijib is on the show.
Legit.
Olijib is on the show. But if you want to tell people actually how to say your name, that would be because I'd be joking.
Um, I think it's the more common version. Just be Olajib. I just say it in different ways. You can say however you way you want.
Yeah, I'd be joking with him. I'd be like, Olejib, Olejib, Olejbe. Sorry.
Olajibe.
Oh, I don't know about that one. But for a little bit of context, we just finished the Boy Next World series, all 10 episodes. As of the time that we are recording this, the special episode has not been released, and we are not sure if we'll be able to watch it because I know the other shows like Love in the Air, the special episode it wasn't available in where I am to watch it. So I'm not sure about this special episode how that'll go. But hopefully we'll be able to watch it because then that'll be, more probably not more information, but it'll be more context about the universe we're in.
Or
Um,
another world.
we've gathered that one. I think in the special world, Pooh's the stalker, or he just has a very intense crush. But yeah, is there any sort of like topic you want to touch on first? I know that I have my little like notes, you have your notes, but is there something you want to start with?
So the Boy Next World, the title itself, I'll ask you this. Do you think the title is misleading at all?
I think that if you read the title and you watched the trailer and you wanted exactly what you saw in the trailer, like to the T, I think that you would be disappointed watching the show.
Mm,
And the reason why I say that is the main plot of the show is, in my opinion, Sir battling being his own person separate from his family. I don't see the main plot um being the parallel universe just creates consequences that influences the plot. Where it's like it almost feels like him being a stalker and stalking Pooh was more of the main plot than the parallel world was.
Yeah.
Because it actually impacted it more than the parallel world will with like what happened in the episodes.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's necessarily misleading, but I think if you got your hopes up of like that being the main push and that being brought up all the time and it really having an impact, then you would probably be like, "Oh, this isn't what I thought I signed up for." You know what I mean?
Yeah. I agree with that aspect. I guess I can kind of roll that into how I feel about the utilization of the different worlds because well before we even started recording I had to skim through all the episodes or at least majority of the episodes right quick and okay so the first time that he was ever like that we were ever hinted at there was like a parallel world was when he had a dream. This was like after he had already got hit by a car and confronted
Okay.
Pooh saying that he's his boyfriend and going through all the stuff basically trying to prove that he's from another world. But we didn't actually get confirmation that there was potential until the one time where he had a dream and he was like looking at probably another version of himself, like with another Pooh. And then he was in that white room with Sir. And the next time was, I forget what happened before then, but it was another dream until eventually the last, like, like ninth episode where it was like he got hit by the car again and another Sir from another world had taken over his body. That's when that was like three times that it's only really reflected on Parallel Worlds, and it only really confirmed it that last time. Like the first two times, you can kind of just like say the like, oh, this is just like he's just crazy, which he is. He has been stalking this dude since high school and did not make a move on him until he got hit by a car. So shout out to the car, I guess. But
Car real MVP.
right, the car is really what started it all. But so I feel like they really could have expanded on that a little more because I feel like yes, like what you were saying earlier, like how pretty much the main conflict of the story is kind of Sir, becoming I guess better as a person, like accepting that he likes Pooh and he's not being more comfortable with himself. And I feel like what better? I feel like it would also be it would kind of flow seamlessly to do that if you also like shed a little more light on parallel worlds because like it's all him. So you can see like different versions of him. You can see that like every single version of him. It was established in the show that like every single version had their Pooh and they were in there and they were like happy. So I feel like that could have helped him develop a better understanding of himself, but it didn't really do that. It's kind of just like hey, we exist, and now we're going. Like, hey, we exist. You switch bodies for like a day, and now, oops, switch back, just out of nowhere, and then we're just not gonna talk about it ever again. So I just feel like that was a little underutilized. I feel like it could have been used a bit more. But it definitely could have added more depth to the character, Sir as a character. I feel.
Another thing that I'm curious about is a lot of people on TikTok have read the book, and I'm not sure if this is the case, but in the beginning, um, whichever episode it was where he had the nightmare and he was like, "I'm sorry for lying."
Mhm.
Um, that caused a lot of discourse on TikTok where people were like, "Yeah, in the book he's a liar. He's just a stalker. There is no parallel world." And I'm not sure um if they meant like, oh, the plot twist is after, and like you get the plot twist in the book too of like, oh, there is a parallel world and he's not crazy. He is crazy, but he's not that crazy. Like, I don't know
Mhm.
if that happens or if in the book he is literally making it all up in his head and we never get that extra step of like, yes, there is a parallel world, because there is always kind of a difference between the book and the show when it gets adapted. So
Right.
I am curious if in the book he is if he also has a parallel world. But I have also seen people say that the books are pretty close to the show. So it might have gone exactly how um the book went for once. But I do think that when we're talking about the parallel world, I think it made it interesting, and it made it so that it's not a show that you've seen before. But I think it
Right.
wasn't like fully like fleshed out properly, really, like when they were teasing you into getting into the show. Mainly because I think they did it on purpose. I will say I do think it was like a writer's choice, because they were very discreet about if the parallel world existed or not, and didn't, like, they kept hinting like, yes, there is a parallel world, but then they had um Sir kind of have his doubts, and then they kind of like trickled in like little aspects, like us knowing that um Sir had like knew all this information about him and had been following him since high school, and then like adding on Wim's involvement of like kind of doing favors for Sir because Sir didn't
Hmm.
want to talk to him, and like all that little stuff where it's like, as a viewer, it makes you be like, okay, we have a bad narrator. We have a narrator that's lying to us. But
Yeah.
then at the same time, they threw in Jin, who has superpowers, and they threw in those dreams that we
Hmm.
didn't know were dreams until he woke up from the nightmare one. Like we didn't know, like we thought it was in his mind, but we didn't know it was a dream. Like he has to be unconscious for that man to reach him. Um,
Right.
but they sprinkled in both elements where it's like, because even we were split. I was hell bent on he was just a stalker. He made up the entire parallel universe, and he's just crazy. And you were like, no, there's a parallel universe. Like even us watching it together, we were split with the consensus until we got to I think it was like episode 9, and he got hit by a car again. Like
Yeah.
justice for that
And
man. Like he can survive getting hit, struck by lightning at this point.
you had mentioned that where it's like you have Jin who has superpowers. So it's just like, I mean, you can't. I mean, you can always just chalk it down to like it's just like a writer's choice, creative choice, just within the story. But I'm like, there has to be some type of parallel world connection, or at least like more utilization. If you have literally have a guy with superpowers, just like in the same class. So I just thought, like, dang, like you really could have like put those together, and it would have made the story a lot more. It could have added more to the story.
Expanding on that, I did want to mention something, because at the end of episode 10, I was like, Randall, am I crazy? I have watched a good amount of toxic shows. You know, I'm not saying that I want the healthiest green flag, you know, like FIFA and wine relationship from Perfect 10 Liners. Like, that's probably the healthiest relationship I've ever seen in the BL community, point blank, period. It is very
Mhm.
common in the LGBT space for us to have queer stories that are not healthy. And I don't know why. I mean, honestly, all representation of romantic relationships in media kind of are toxic to certain extents. Or like they'll go through like a toxic phase and then be healthy at the end, but it's like, you know, um, but it's very common for us to have really unhealthy relationships. Like My Beautiful Man, my personal weatherman, and Ken Porsche are my go-to's of like like any of this. But like even shows with these actors like Love in the Air, their characters were toxic as hell in that show as well. Um, and the reason why I'm saying this is because I let it happen. And I'm like, I love y'all regardless. Like I am a diehard, like I love Vegas and Pete. I love Ken and Porsche together. Like they're extremely toxic characters. And even in like Love in the Air with these actors, I loved Rain and Payu together. But if we really want to be real, Payu messed up that man's car just to have an excuse to do a favor for him so that he would go to his garage so that he could talk to him. He like a baby, sir. He a baby, sir. He sir if like sir actually had the balls to like influence Pooh's life without getting hit by a car. But
Right.
all that to say, this relationship, if we chalk it down to like facts, we have Sir who has been stalking this man since high school. And we have
Yep.
Pooh who is extremely lonely and dependent on Sir the entire show, which I thought was so
Yeah.
interesting because they kind of chalk the reason of his behavior down to the fact that his father passed away and his mother moved away because of the traumatic experience. But if you really think about it, it makes sense that obviously family should impact you a lot, but we're shown that he is very involved in his cousins and aunt uncle's lives, and that he has an insanely healthy friend group. Chai's a little,
Yeah.
he's a little interesting when it comes to what he did towards the end of the show. But that excluded, he has an insanely healthy and supportive friend group that just wants the best for him, and he has he was living with his aunt before college, and they seemed like they were all also extremely healthy. So I'm very curious with all this how we still managed to get a character that the second they got shown like what they were believing is genuine love. We know that Sir has genuine love, but if you think about it, it is still a weird situation. That it all chalks down to the first drop of like affection. He's extremely like concerningly dependent on him.
Already pretty much fused into him at this point.
Yeah, like they were tied together. Like you would think there was a red string, and there is, because otherwise the freaking parallel worlds wouldn't make sense. But like the way that they fell in love was basically they looked at each other's eyes. Obviously, Sir has been in love for a while, but Pooh, the second he actually interacted with Sir, was like already down bad. He didn't take no like crush stage. He just kind of fell. And I was just like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
They spent every single waking moment together. Obviously, Sir got to know Pooh a lot over his little stalking period. But I feel like Pooh did not know that much about Sir before they actually kind of got into a somewhat serious relationship. He was like convincing himself like, oh, I'm not actually his boyfriend. I'm the fake Pooh and all that stuff. But he wasn't really actually listening to himself.
At all. Because like Pooh, like, okay. Because I think it was shown in the flashback that like, I think Wim just asked like Pooh, like, how does he think about Sir? And it's just kind of just like generic, pretty much how anybody who doesn't know anybody for real but just sees him around school kind of would give as an answer. But then all of a sudden he shows up at your door soaking wet from the rain with a big old bandage on his head saying, giving you a hug, I'm your boyfriend, and I've been your boyfriend, I come from a parallel world, I know everything about you, please love me. And Pooh was like,
Bet.
you son of a bitch, I'm in.
He didn't question it enough for me.
At all.
He was just like, okay. And honestly, I understand because it's like this person has randomly showed up and knows everything about you, and he's not someone you didn't know. That's what I think helped him, is that he knew Sir. He just didn't know him. Like, he knew of him. He just didn't know him personally, like, as a friend. But even still, if someone came up to me, knocked on my door, had a thing around my head, the doctors are telling me that this man had a concussion, I'm thinking you're going through some sort of mental crisis. And, like your brain has tricked you, which it did in the beginning. With like he was thinking that he was like going crazy when he saw like the reality where he was with Pooh.
Yeah,
I would be thinking this man has somehow tricked his brain into believing we were a couple, and now because of his concussion, because he like got hit by a car, this is a side effect of that condition. I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable feeding into it. And then even if you told me you're from a parallel world, I would be exactly like how Pooh was, where he was feeling guilty at one point. I would be like that too, because I'd be like, I'm not actually the person you fell in love with. It's kind of like how I feel whenever I watch reincarnated stories, where I'm like, especially when they get reincarnated and they're not the same person. Um, like you fell in love with my soul somewhere else, but that's not me. Like, I'm not sure if you remember me talking about Until We Meet Again, but Until We Meet Again, they're reincarnated, but they are not the same people. Like I do not remember the original couple's names, but the original couple committed suicide. Um,
Right.
and they had a red string tied attached. So then they reincarnated into two different people in the same families that their original people were in. They kind of just swapped families, but
Mm-hmm.
they are not the same people. They just have the original's memories. Like they don't have the same personalities, they don't have the same interests. Like they're completely different people. They just have the same memories of what happened. And that kind of
Mm-hmm.
feels like what this is, especially considering this isn't even reincarnation. This is basically clones. This is doppelgangers. Like if you like somehow could manage to get Sir with the ponytail and our Sir in the same room, they would basically just be twins.
Yep.
They're not reincarnation. So then I would feel even weirder because I'd be like, you really didn't fall in love with me. And especially because the evil Sir, as we call him, basically confirmed that every single Sir is different.
Yeah.
So it's like every Pooh is probably different too. So you
Very
definitely
true.
didn't fall for me. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, Pooh didn't know that.
Yeah.
He,
Pooh didn't know
yeah.
that. Pooh was blissfully ignorant the entire show.
And I think he wanted to stay ignorant. I'm not gonna lie. He's like, I'm just loving the way I'm getting treated right now.
That could be a part of it. I'm just curious. The reason I brought up his family is because we see why Sir is the way he is. He was brought up like a robot. His mom's a psycho, all this
Mhm.
stuff. And I can understand how he turned out the way he turned out. But Pooh's like reliance and dependence on Sir and them kind of like hinting that it is because of his family was like kind of dropped me a little bit just because of the rest of the people that are around him. Like I would
Yeah.
understand if he was like isolated, didn't have that many friends or didn't have that like supportive environment, but the thing is he did, and he's like a super bubbly happy person even though sometimes he was faking it. He seems to like be pretty smart, and he got himself in this really weird like situation. I guess it just at the end of the day it just proves that no matter what, like anybody can, I don't know, fall for your stalker. Get yourself in a weird situation.
Yeah.
No matter how
Very.
smart, dumb, supportive, not supportive relationships you got,
Mm,
all it takes is that one person cooked.
he got there a stalker.
Yep. I will say, out
Who's
of
that
all the
Trump family?
stalkers, if I got Sir, I wouldn't be that mad because he had no malicious intent. He wasn't like, he was just fine being in the
True.
background to the point where it's like I feel like other people might have caught this, but I did not catch that the reason Pooh thought he was so lucky is because Sir's been taking care of him for so long.
Hmm. I did like how they pointed that out in the show.
I did too because I was dumb and I wouldn't have gotten that on my own. So
I think it added more I guess more impact to like how much Sir truly loved Pooh. Like he loved that man.
yeah,
Loved in all caps.
yeah, a little too much, but it's okay. Both of them love each other a little too much. It's okay. They would definitely be the type to pull a Romeo and Juliet. That's
Yeah,
where I'm feeling.
Sir was close. Once Pooh was mad at him,
I was worried. Like
he
when we saw that he moved his stuff out, I got worried.
yep, he was like, yep. Empty room, my world. My world is just, it's just my poo is just everything is just crashing down. You only lost your boyfriend. I know, that's the point. That's pretty much how he was.
Yep. Down bad to the Earth's core.
You only lost your boyfriend. Exactly.
That's the point. I did also, okay, before we get into the latter half of the season, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think this is kind of like a side note. I think it's so funny that Jen knew everything and just let other people figure it out.
I would do that too if
He
I
did
if I could
not
read mine.
he did not intervene ever.
And I honestly respected him for that because there's in the wrong hands, they would be like, "Oh, well, this person said this," and this.
Man, can you imagine if Boston from Only Friends had that power?
Oh my
We
god!
would be
Oh,
cooked,
that's
okay?
so, yeah, that would be
Clean.
terrible. That would be
Done.
terrible.
Like Jin is literally probably the most wholesome person ever. He has quite literally a power where he could take advantage. He can manipulate anyone as long as he don't like them, because we saw what happens when that happens.
Right.
He can manipulate anything to his will. Like he could cheat on he should be a straight A 4.0 student, low key. He really should. He really should. But I just wanted to say that I thought that that was funny as a segue to talking about Jen and Wim. And you know how I feel about Jen and Wim. My babies.
Favorite couple.
Favorite couple. It happens every time, y'all. I always, for some reason, like the couple that does not get a lot of screen time, or that people like see as the second lead couple when there's like numerous couples in a show. And I this was my introduction to Fourth Donut, and it was a lovely introduction. Lovely. Wouldn't trade it for the world, even though they probably averaged like 15 minutes max of screen time.
Right.
I would be
Yeah.
surprised if it's more than that.
They had their
Together.
little like they had like one scene per episode since like
If
episode
that.
4, I think was when they first met.
Yeah. Like them as individual characters, they have way more screen time, but them actually together and developing their relationship is not that much time.
It's like, all right, you guys, you got 5 minutes, make it count.
I do like when like Jen and Wim first met though, because it gave more perspective of like Wim as a character, because I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have gotten that like goofy kind of like aloof side of him without Jen being there. Like he doesn't really act like that with anyone else.
Yeah. Jin definitely brings that side out and more. I guess it was really because like Jin like knew how to mess with him since he was could read his mind in the beginning there. Meanwhile, I mean, with like women, sir, it's more of like a like we're friends, but I'm also like gotta look out for you because you know your family's crazy. Um, Rome, it's like I'm cool with you, but you're stupid and you make me mad. So
Rome, like Rome's that friend that would be like, "When did you get married?"
right,
Like, fool, you were at the wedding. What do you mean? Like him and like I was gonna say him and Chai kind of remind me of each other because they were just always kind of like out the loop somehow. And then like when they put like when Rome was like, "Oh, Sir ran away to marry his fiance," and they were like, "Divide Rome's words by 10." I was like, he's over
right,
exaggerating. But I will say Jen and Wim are my favorite couple. I did actually like them more than Pooh and Sir, which is not a shock because, like I said, I fall for the second couples all the time. But the reason being is I think it's because I liked Jen's character so much, because I liked that it was told to us that he has this power, and he was like in the beginning he was kind of quiet and mysterious because he just knew everything. He was just like, you'll figure it out on your own. And I just kind of liked that about him. But I also thought it was very amusing whenever they did have scenes together, because it was always like Jen pissing Wim off basically. And it was just
yeah,
so funny. It was like a nice little break of like, I don't have to theorize anything about y'all. I don't have to worry that some random 5'10" girl is gonna come in and ruin my mood. Like I just kind of can just like until they were at that hospital, everything was fine. Up until they weren't even at the hospital actually when that happened. They were somewhere. I don't remember where now. When Jen was like, "Hey, I can read minds, but I can't read yours anymore because I started to like you." That was like the biggest issue they had, and honestly, props to Sir as the wingman because if he hadn't said that, I feel like Wim would have never talked to Jen again.
Right. I mean, the service is like, yeah, yeah, he's right. Who was like, what? So I was tripping. Pretty much
Basically,
exactly how that went, and then they made up.
it was wonderful. And Wim is so me in a relationship when he was just like, "I'm gonna turn my head over here, and I'm not gonna look at you as I say this, but I like you, and yeah, we can date if you want." Like, he was not looking at him for a second. It was so cute. Like, I'm gonna
That's
take
pretty
my little 15 minutes of screen time.
cool. You know how I feel. We'll get into that later. But how do you feel about the family, Sir's family in particular?
Well, I will say in the beginning, I thought that that bodyguard was gonna be. I don't even know if he's a bodyguard. Bodyguard's a secretary. Something I can't probably say right now. Uh, I thought he was gonna have more of an impact, and he didn't. He was just annoying, and he stood weird.
Yep,
That's basically his character.
knees bent inwards, like
Yeah, and we noticed it every time. I think he just stands that way. And like, there's something being like pigeon toed. You know, there's different like things that we have called for different walks. But the problem was he wasn't even walking yet. He just
no,
was standing, and we were just like, oh.
hey,
Now,
whatever's comfortable.
as for the mom, I think she might be one of the most useless characters that I've seen in a while. And the reason
Mm-hmm.
being is she didn't ever seem threatening to me, but everyone else acted like she was the president.
Like, oh my gosh, look out! No, no, mother. What about mother?
Yeah,
She's
like
gonna
what are
hurt
we
her.
gonna do? Like, Wim and Zone and like everybody who knew that this woman existed basically was like, oh no, like we have to figure out what to do about her, and like, oh, we can't, like we have to make sure we follow the rules. Like I was just like, why? Like legitimately, obviously we know that she is not scared of like physically harming someone, so I guess the biggest threat is murder. But even then, um I genuinely feel like with everyone that was against her, they could have figured out a way to like make her come to her senses, especially since it seemed like the only real motive that she had for doing everything that she did was because she was butthurt about the divorce. And you've been
Right.
butthurt about the divorce for a little too long, girl. Like at this point, you could have gotten a new man to torture rather than the sons. I'm sure you can find a boy toy that's willing to marry for money and be basically your slave, is what she wanted.
Right. You're talking about people being your property. You could have found somebody who wanted that.
You really could have. I'm sure there is plenty of people in this world that that would be a better option than whatever they have going on to them, in their opinion. That you could have scooped up and like did a contract and boom bam fixed.
Yep.
Um I mean, I guess that's all I have on her. She was just very annoying. I didn't really understand her character either, and I kind of just deemed her as useless, mainly because I really did not feel like she was that big of a threat. And for most of the plot, she wasn't. Like,
I'm
so
not-
it's like, okay. Now when we get into I'm gonna leave Zone for last because I know you. But when we get into the father, dude, that was the funniest thing ever. When he stepped into the frame, I was like, bro, this is like Samaritan.
right.
He
The
looks
nicest man ever.
like they literally the cast description for his character must have been like looks like the nicest person on earth. Like he literally looks like if he could play Frosty the Snowman if they ever like turned him into a real person. Like He's that genuinely nice. Yes, like the original Frosty the Snowman,
Yeah.
like cartoon animated. Like if they turn him into a person, like that's how nice he looked. He looked that nice. Like had Christmas spirit like shining through him and everything. I was like, oh my god. And
How
the
did you meet the?
huh?
It's just like, how did you meet the mom?
No,
Like,
literally.
how did y'all click?
Like y'all look like polar opposites. And I know opposites attract or whatever, but that was ridiculous. But they did really good casting because that literally did look like Zone and him. They did look alike.
Yeah.
So, not much on him because I mean, we knew he existed, but he just also kind of useless. Like you are kind of a really bad, negligent parent to let this happen to your kids for such a long period of time, and you have not even once tried to help. And then you gonna give me a "I'm sorry" at the end after trading your son and still not doing anything to help the other son that's about to go into the demon's lair. Which brings us to Zone. Um, and then I'll be done and you can start your family ramble. But
Mhm.
um Zone, I like him as a character and I like how supportive he was of his brother and how I guess appreciative. What the heck? Appreciative he was. That I guess Sir basically sacrificed his childhood instead of him since we know they were like babies when the divorce happened.
Yeah.
I don't think we got that much depth of like who he is outside of the family. Like we didn't know like does he have friends? Does he have a partner? Is he in school? What's this man doing? Like we don't really know that much about him. But we do know
Mhm.
that he's decently close to Sir because they seem cool. They seem legit. Sir and his dad probably aren't as close considering he was banned from being in contact with him. But
Yeah.
um, that's all I really have to say about him. I'm just still shocked that we really just threw him in the lion's den and they didn't mention him after that scene. They didn't
Mhm.
even like not even like a honorary like you know like sometimes when there's like a season 2 or like a oh there might be more content there like they might have like a teaser scene or something. We didn't even get
Yep.
anything like that. Like they really just said Zone's going in, he's coming out, bye. Like
Yeah. This kind of ties into a whole bunch of stuff, but the family, the family could have been completely ripped from the story, and I feel like the story would have went the exact same way, except for, of course, the scenes that dealt explicitly with the family. Now, the family, so mother, she was not introduced from, at least from what I remember skimming. She was not introduced, like she didn't. Her character didn't appear till episode 3, really episode 4, when Sir had to go back and basically meet with her, talk with her, whatnot. And it's kind of the same thing same thing that you said. It's kind of she wasn't a useful character to the plot. She was just kind of there because the plot just wanted her there, but she really served no greater purpose. This is this hyped up mother like oh my gosh, we have to like mother, she made this teacher commit suicide. Oh my gosh, we got to be careful. What is she gonna do to us? She already confronted Pooh and offered him money to get him to stop seeing Sir and blah 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 blah. But she just didn't do anything. Even with all like they hyped her up so bad for her to be one of the most useless characters in the show to me. Like she was on this whole like thing where it was like, oh, people in my property or whatever. Like if you want to like at least try to give a little more to the story, which I feel like is kind of another thing I want to say near the end, where it's like if you want to give more to the story, like what's the like what gave her the mindset to think that people were her property? Like what pushed her to be this way? Give her some substance. Make her a character. She was just a she was a character, but she wasn't a fleshed out character. She was just kind of just a plot point to add additional conflict to the story that honestly could have definitely went without. Like if they had went the like for example, if they had went the whole like parallel worlds way for Sir to like be more comfortable with himself, if they had went that way, they could have completely just crashed the whole family concept because that could have been a good show within itself because you would see like the multiple versions of Sir and Pooh like multiple times and them all getting together, blah blah blah. So that'd be pretty cool. That would have been pretty cool. And then at the end, like she didn't see like she was kind of like she appeared. She gave Pooh a like how much you want to stop messing with Sir, and then like kind of disappeared up until the end, and when Sir got hit by the car again. And then it was like, oh well, now I got a fiance. You got to marry this fiance. So I'm just gonna force her, and that just adds another character being the fiance to add more conflict, just because, just to basically push the story and add some type of conflict moving forward, only for it to finally get back to the end, like after when Pooh and Wim like infiltrate and go inside the house, and it's just like no, you're my property, you're mine. You were so possessive over Sir the entire show, and then you're just like, well, how about you trade me your brother, and then I'll all be good. What? How did how did we you've been like they broke up. I forget how long it said, but they've been divorced. The mother and father they've been divorced for a long time. Like they've grown up, they're grown, and they're in college now. I'm pretty sure this at least happened in high school. They're grown and they're in college now.
They were kids.
Yeah. So they grew up with like a whole other you barely even know Zone. She might not even know what she looked like in the beginning of the show, to be quite honest. And it's like all of a sudden it's just like, well, trade me your brother and I'll just let you go. That that that's that easy? I could have done it the whole time. And that's really just like, and that was her whole character. It's just like, well, fine. I'll take Zone and I'll leave you alone now. That was like the most underwhelming, I guess, resolution to that part of the plot, which is ultimately why I think it's just like, why was it even there? Same thing with the dad. I was thinking the dad was going to be standing on business. Like the dad had broken away from this evil woman who's been like using her power to threaten people, make them commit suicide. Like basically use her power to make what she want happen. And then I see this bald bundle of sunshine walk through the door talking about some, hey, don't let Sir go. Let Sir go, pretty please.
Pretty
Pretty please, can you let
please.
her go?
Pretty
I'll give
please.
you
And then he was like, uh, can you trade them for me? And I was like, bruh, if that was the case, why'd you ever get divorced?
right. Right. If it was that simple, what was the point? And now, last but not least, we have Zone. Zone had so much potential as a character to me, which is, I guess, why I feel so strongly about this. Because Zone is Sir. Like, I feel like Zone is Sir if he wasn't raised by mother. And I feel like they really could have established that fact and like really fleshed out like how life was without like his brother, or like without a mom, or knowing that like his mom, like his family just pretty much broken. But all Zone was a plot point. Nothing less, nothing more, a means to an end. He was a plot point. He was not an impactful character in the story. He showed up in episode 6. This man had 4 episodes of just even like knowing or him being part of the plot, only for him to in the end to just be like, I'm just gonna take the bullet and then just go switch with you to be with my abusive mother so I can suffer too. Like there was no like plan, at least that we know of. There was no plan. There was just like, I'll sacrifice myself for you. Why? I feel like we could have had another resolution here. I feel like, even though I know you always be like, oh, the mother should have died.
I'm standing
I
on
don't
that.
think I don't. I think it could have been resolved within another way without killing the mom. But it definitely, I was like, the last thing I was expecting was just to be like, yeah, I'll go, and that be it. there was no like, oh, I plan to like run away after, I plan to like try and take down mother within the own with like within her own business, blah 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 blah, like, and just like basically bide my time so I can be free. It was just like, I'm going to take the fall for you, brother. That's all. Bye. Like, and this is like, you could have done. I feel like Zone had could have been such a good character. Not even say that he's a bad character, but he is just there. He was literally just a key. Like, he was like an item that you picked up in a game just to use later. He was an item that you picked up and you're like, oh yeah, well, now's the time to use it. Here, I'm going to use my zone card. And now you get out of jail free. I feel like, that was so like, okay, you could have just went without that entire, like, the whole family. You could have just thrown that out the window if you weren't gonna give them any type of substance. And that's any type of substance. And I feel like that also goes. I mean, that kind of goes within both the parallel universes too. I feel like a lot of things could have been developed outside of just Pooh and Sir, because it would have made like the outer plot points make a little more sense if you just add just a couple details or exposition here and there to do it. And I don't know if it's because they just had 10 episodes to do it, so like they just had to just, roll with it, because they had a lot to cover in the 10th episode, because Wim was still mad at Jen. Pooh just found out that Sarah was lying. We didn't really know where the freaking whole parallel universe thing was about to go in the first place. And then we still had to worry about the family. Like, we had four like of the main conflicts that have been like present throughout the entire story, still yet to be unresolved. So it just like everything just in the end. I feel like they could have done that just a little better, just a little better. That's my whole rant. I'm done.
And I will say, I do think if we're talking about fleshed out side characters, I do really like the way that they handled Pooh and Sir's friend groups, because
Mm-hmm.
we got their personalities and like we didn't get no backstory or anything. Obviously, we kind of have a little bit more with Jen and Wim, but
Yeah,
we didn't get like a backstory or anything on any of them. And I still feel like I like really love all of the characters. I still got a grudge against Chai. I got a
yeah.
grudge because he was
What
a
he did
little
was crazy.
stupid. Like he was thinking with the wrong head. Okay, like
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, no, no, sir. Like you kind of just sold your friend out. But he was
Man,
apologetic at the end. But Pooh's friends, everybody will ride or die for Pooh, is what I've heard around the block. Because when Sir temporary swapped with the Payu Sir, man, they were about to rip that man's ponytail off.
right.
Like, how dare you? Bloop, bloop, bloop. I was like, yeah, that this is a great friend group. Um, but I guess what would be your rating for the show if you had to give it a rating, scale of 1 to 10, and then what's your favorite character?
So for a rating, I feel like, okay, even though I had my whole like 20-minute rant about the family, about the parallel worlds not being utilized, or it could be being utilized better, I do still think, as if I were to rate it 1 through 10, I think it's a solid 7 at best. I feel, because like, it wasn't a good. I mean, I would say it wasn't like a great, like, whoa, this is an amazing show, but it wasn't a terrible show. Like, the show was funny at times. It had its good moments. It had its like nice moments. It had, like, the sultry moments that you had to get Mocha for. It had the plot. It had the points that made the show, which I thought was good. I just feel like it just a little more depth would have went a long way with the show. So I put it at 7, which I think is fairly average. My favorite character, my favorite character might I don't okay. I gotta think about this. Okay, my favorite character. I'll go on a limit and say my favorite character is Sir, because I feel like outside of the stalker part, um, I feel like he was. I mean, he was a very good character. Like, he was really like the prime example of being all about they partner and only they partner. Like he didn't really talk. Like he hung out with Pooh's friend group, but he was kind of like was not talking to anybody, just kind of just sitting there, like all like re- just resting bitch face, just like I'm not trying to talk to you. I'm not trying to talk to you. And then when Pooh talks, oh Pooh, and he's so excited. So I like that. I liked his character during all of those shenanigans. And you can't say he didn't love Pooh. You can't say that. You cannot ever say that.
Mm-mm.
So I mean I liked his character in that aspect. So I think Sir would be my favorite character.
Okay. I would have to say I'm gonna agree with you on the rating. I was kind of thinking about it, um, especially in the. I'm mainly comparing it to other BLs that I've watched. I'm not really comparing it to any other like, I guess, genre. Not really genre, but like people be saying BL is a genre, but
Mm,
category of shows, it's a the BL is the category, right? So under all the BLs that I've watched so far, as I'm getting a little bit more into watching them, um, I would definitely say it's a 7, as well for me. And I think like like I don't even know if I have a favorite BL, because like a lot of times people deem certain like scenes or certain things that happened as like cringe, and that lowers their like rating for the show. Like for example, the Heart Killers, the bowling alley scene where they're dancing together, people were like, that's cringe, I skipped past that. Which happens a lot in BLs, where there's like something that people think is cringe and they like dock the show for it, right?
yeah.
um and I don't think that I really got any of that. I definitely had moments where I was like, what the heck's happening? But and I
Yeah.
definitely was like confused for like half the show. I think episode 6 maybe is where I wasn't confused anymore. And I was like, oh, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of understand where this is going. Um but overall I really like the concept and I really like the characters, and I feel like that's what made it like a good solid show. Like 10 would be like a, this is monumental, everyone needs to watch this show, this is crazy good. And then a 1
Right.
is like, this was literally a waste of money and production, and why did you put this on my screen? That's like where my scale is. So
Yeah.
and I do also like a lot of like my rating goes into how I feel when I watch the show, and I felt like really like excited, mad, shy, like I felt all the emotions watching this show. So definitely a 7 out of 10 for me. And then when it comes to my favorite character, I was kind of going back and forth on this one, right? Um,
Okay.
because I have a favorite character, but then I have a favorite character based on how they affected the actual story.
Mm.
And then I'm like, okay, so out of those two, who's my actual favorite character? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm still a little stuck, not gonna lie. I would say my favorite character has to be Wim.
Yeah.
Um, I would say that mainly because he was such a ride or die friend. And he made it seem like he didn't want to be there and he didn't want to actually be taking care of Sir. But no matter what happened, if something happened to him, he was there
Mm-hmm.
and he would be helping. He helped in the beginning. We find out that he's been helping Sir his entire life. He witnessed all of the abuse that he went through personally. When they were in high school, he helped him like get like I guess information on Pooh. Like he was just very supportive of everything Sir ever did. And then in college, when like he went ghost and like was missing class and stuff, he took care of Sir then too. Like he was just a very reliable, strong-willed friend. Then when we get into him and Jen's like interactions, we kind of get more of his personality, where it's like he's kind of blunt and very like easily distracted. Like
Yeah.
kind of all over the place. And I like that part of his character because I was like, oh wow, we haven't seen that. Like he does not act like that around Sir, which is really cool. But
Mm-hmm.
then even at the end when like Pooh asked him for help, like he was just always on it. Like that man was always on it. So I think overall, I'm gonna have to say Wim claimed my heart. Thank you, Donut. Happy belated birthday. He's 28, y'all.
Oh,
That
does not look.
was just
Does
like
not.
he doesn't. That's how I be getting. Like when I found out I was older than Gemini and Fourth, I was just like, oh, I'll just go curl into a ball in this corner over here. And honestly, Neo looks like their age. And I know he's not. I just know he's not. There's no way he is. But yeah, that is my favorite character. Um that's what I thought about the show. I don't think I have anything else. Do you?
I think that's all for me in regards to that show.
Regards to that show, do you have thoughts on something else?
I mean,
Regards to that show, but let me tell you about this other one. Boy,
no,
do I have a story for you.
I'm just well. I know you had asked me in the YouTube video when we were watching the show, but I think I probably have Boy Next World at third within the three that I finished. So OnlyFans would be one, Heart Killers two. I have Boy Next World at three.
I think if I had to rate my top 3 BLs that I've ever watched, I would do one is probably gonna go to Ken Porsche. And the reason being is on top of it being an insanely good show and on top of me kind of like I watched it at a good time. Um but on top of all that, the impact that BL had of like allow it like open it's almost like a gateway BL. Like when that
Mm-hmm.
BL came out, tons of other BLs came out of having different plots. Like people got bolder because
Mm-hmm.
beforehand it had always kind of been a little bit similar plots that we're getting. They weren't very risky. And I'll say Kim Porsche is an extremely risky show when you want to talk about what's going on in it. There's nothing is ethical. So not a single damn thing. So I would have to put that one at one. My personal I think my second would have to go to Only Friends because that was also crazy. That was a time. And then third, Love in the Air because I am insanely bonded to Sky as a character. Um, Even though like it's not necessarily like a crazy different show. Um, it's just a personal favorite for me because of how much I like Sky.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I am very curious to see if the boys will have another show getting launched. If there's anything about that, I will be watching them because obviously, y'all, I love these actors. I love this show for introducing me to Fourth Donut and giving me 2 more actors to really like. Thanks, guys. The list keeps growing. But I think it was a really fun experience and it feels really short because it was only 10 episodes.
Right.
But yeah, I guess we'll wrap up here. Thank you for being a part of the first episode of the Q Crew.
Of course, of course.
Yep, yep. Um,
I get hit the outro. You're making a new outro for the.
no, for real. I'm thinking like, do I do my? I can't say like and subscribe. What if they? What if one day they own Spotify and I say like and subscribe? Like and subscribe what? Because that's the goal is to have this on YouTube, but then also get it on podcast streaming form. So we'll see how that goes. But um, that was our review of The Boy Next World. We gave it an overall rating of a 7 out of 10. We will probably be back eventually with some other stuff, but I'm not gonna spoil it in case Randall says no, and then I'm like, oh, actually, Ole Hib cannot join us today, guys. So yeah, you'll see him and his disembodied voice when you see him. And yeah, thanks for tuning in.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.